Ukraine continues to work with countries that are under attack by the Iranian regime, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky reported. There are new agreements under which the Ukrainian side will be even more represented in new security formats. The president emphasized that Ukraine also has experience in protecting maritime routes. The United Kingdom is working on the diplomatic front to resolve the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, which was provoked by Iran. Representatives from more than 40 countries took part in the emergency meeting in London to unblock this key energy artery. This was reported by the UK Foreign Office. Among the participants were the United Arab Emirates, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom itself.
From the very beginning, we have held a different view from the United States and have not engaged in offensive actions in the Middle East, as we believed there were real concerns about escalation and its consequences, including for the economy. But now we are faced with these reckless Iranian attacks on international shipping, affecting countries all over the world that were not involved in this conflict. More than 40 countries have gathered today for these discussions, and we clearly understand what we need to do. Diplomatic and economic pressure, as well as the work being carried out by military experts to ensure the security of shipping.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk commented on recent world events, in particular the statement by the United States about a possible withdrawal from NATO and ending aid to Ukraine. He called this the perfect scenario for Putin. Tusk also recalled the US decision to ease sanctions on Russian oil and Hungary's blocking of the EU loan for Ukraine.
The threat of NATO's collapse, the weakening of sanctions against Russia, a large-scale energy crisis in Europe, the cessation of aid to Ukraine, and Orban blocking the loan for Kyiv. All of this seems like the perfect plan for Putin. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, on social network X.
The March campaign by Ukraine's defense forces became one of the largest in terms of the number of Russian strategic facilities hit. They came under attack, 5 factories and 10 oil refining facilities of the Russian Federation. Among them is the Kremny Elv-Bryansk plant, which is one of the largest microelectronics enterprises in Russia. Also hit were the only service center for S-400 air defense systems in Crimea and the Alkevsk metallurgical plant, where artillery shell casings are cast. Ukrainian long-range strikes on Russia in March halted a significant portion of Russian oil exports in the Baltic region. This was reported by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. 5 European countries, Germany, France, Poland, the United Kingdom, and Italy, at the end of February this year, announced the launch of a program to develop inexpensive drones and air defense systems. The project is based on Ukrainian experience gained over 4 years of full-scale war. Germany was one of the first to respond and supported the new Ukrainian development. The Shahed-type drone interceptor, Vystrela. More details in our next report.
This is a test launch of a new development by the Ukrainian defense industry, the Vystrela interceptor drone. Its task is to destroy enemy aerial targets, such as strike drones like Shahed, Geran, Gerbera, as well as reconnaissance UAVs. The interceptor has already undergone combat testing and has been approved by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.
This blue cone here shows the direction the antenna is facing. The triangle represents an imaginary target, and the square is the place where this imaginary target will be when we start approaching it. This story began a year ago. We would come to the positions. The crews consisted of 5 people. And that was considered normal because at that time there were no feedback mechanisms and there was no general understanding of how this system should work. Now, in fact, only 2 people are needed to operate this system.
The interceptor drone reaches a maximum speed of about 350 kilometers per hour, making it one of the fastest in its class.
This, for example, is the kind of system that will allow a single pilot to control drones over half the region, or 2 pilots to cover almost the entire region. In Kyiv, there might be 3 to 5 pilots. So the idea is to reduce the number of personnel required to operate a large number of drones. That is the main goal.
They plan to deploy 15,000 interceptor drones to the front. They will be handed over to units of the National Guard of Ukraine. Germany is financing the delivery as part of a multi-million euro agreement, the exact cost of which is not being disclosed.
This is about a strategic partnership, about long-term investments in Ukrainian technologies in a unique technological solution from a Ukrainian manufacturer, an interceptor manufacturer called Strela. And I want to say once again that for us, this is work on the ground, work to help Ukraine repel attacks and to close its airspace.
Ukrainian specialists have developed one of the most effective anti-drone technologies in the world, which is now being scaled up to an industrial level. International defense companies. Natalia Belokudria for Freedom TV channel.
It's 8 a.m. in Kiev, and you're watching Our Time. I, Katerina Vishnevskaya, will tell you about the main news at this hour. Hello. So early this morning, Russia struck Kharkiv. This was reported by the city mayor, Ihor Terekov, who said it was a ballistic missile attack. 2 people were injured, one of whom was hospitalized. Apartment buildings and a gas pipeline were damaged. Let me remind you that Kharkiv has been under heavy shelling since yesterday morning. Yesterday afternoon, a direct hit on a residential building was recorded in Kharkiv, injuring 2 people, and in the evening, a 4-story building caught fire. It was reported that 1 person was injured, and a 28-year-old woman and a 1-month-old boy suffered an acute stress reaction. Well, and in the Sumy region, as a result of strikes by the Russian Federation, 1 person was injured. Over the past day, Russian forces shelled 29 settlements in the region. This was reported by the National Police of Ukraine. Investigation teams and sappers worked at the sites. In the region, buildings of a gas station, shops, apartment buildings, and private houses were damaged. Warehouses and farm buildings were destroyed. An enterprise was damaged. Russian troops also attacked Zaporizhzhia the day before. The blast wave damaged an apartment building and a municipal enterprise. According to preliminary information, there were no casualties. In total, 4 people were injured in the Zaporizhzhia region over the past day. The occupiers carried out 856 strikes on 45 settlements. Multiple launch rocket systems, artillery, aerial bombs, and drones were used for the attacks.